Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. So throughout today's video, I'm basically going to be breaking down the agency sales call structure. So as some of you who may be watching for the first time, my name is Matty Howarth. I've been running a marketing agency for the past 7 to 8 years now. And pretty much on today's call, I'm going to be dropping some of my knowledge and insight from all of the sales calls I've done over the years, because honestly, a lot of people nowadays, they just have the complete wrong framework. And they're just basically going their sales calls in the complete wrong way. So that's why we're going to run through kind of a step-by-step. I put together a document. It's about 5 pages long. I will drop the document link below this video, but in today's video, I'm going to dive deep into some of the points that I've added on here, and we're going to just run through it. So no more time to waste. We're going to dive straight into it. I want to provide as much value as possible to anyone who's just getting started in the agency space. Perhaps you've already been in the agency space for a while now, but you're just sort of struggling in your sales calls. And that's pretty much what we're going to go through today in terms of a structure. So let's get started on step one, obviously building the rapport. At the start of any sales call, I tend to sort of dive straight into like a simple, how's your day been? What have you been up to today? A lot of people dive straight into calls with like a hey, how are you? But I'm not going to lie, this builds a lot of sales resistance, because I just see it all the time where someone will just, it's like, I'll give an example. I'm walking down the street and you get those annoying, I'm obviously based in London at the moment, I'm over in Bali, but especially when you're in London, you get those annoying people who they're just on the street and they're trying to sell you something. Typically every single salesman starts, it doesn't matter, even if you walk into a clothing shop, they always start with a, hey, how are you? And it's very easy just to reply, yeah, I'm good, or yeah, I'm all right. But when you obviously ask a question, it's a bit more a long-winded question, like what have you been up to today, or how's your day been? That's when you can expect a longer answer. You don't basically don't want to give it to them on the plate with a simple answer reply. You want basically to obviously open them up, because obviously this determines kind of the rest of the call. I think it creates a good pattern for the rest of the call pretty much. Obviously they're more inclined to reply with a detailed response. Again, this intro should not be longer than 3 to 4 minutes. You can obviously dive into maybe where they're from, etc. Dive into all those details, but yeah, don't make it longer than 4 minutes. Pretty much after the 4 minutes, after I've dived into a bit of an intro, I usually basically ask them if they're all right, if we can just dive straight into the call. Now, obviously framing the call, this is really important. Obviously a lot of people watching this now, you're probably wondering, Matty, do you go for a 1 call close? Do you go for a 2 call close? This really generally depends on the industry. It depends obviously on the company that I am going to be jumping on a call with, because you're going to come across industries, and as some of you may know, over the last 8 years of me building up my agency Social Optimum, I've never actually worked with a specific niche. I work with so many different industries. Paid advertising is predominantly our main service, but we're not niche specific. So I think it's really important for you to understand that, depending on what industry you're reaching out to, that is going to obviously determine whether you're going for a 1 call close or a 2 call close. You should be able to determine this just from a few sales calls, just from gaining some obviously industry experience. So again, framing the call is essential, and obviously subconsciously that you're in control of the call, because at the end of the day, you should be the one in charge of the call. But at the same time, I will dive a bit deeper into detail on this later on in the document. But pretty much, the frame generally dictates how the rest of the call is going to go. So like I just said here, framing it, testing it with your offer industry, and yeah, we're basically going to dive into the 1 call close and then also the 2 call close. So in terms of the 1 call close, usually I just go down the route of, basically asking a few questions, very direct, very simple, basically explaining them what your offer is, running them through it. And then by the end of the call, is everything good on our end? We'll then make them an offer on getting started. You need to obviously understand your market first, see if this could work, because I've had it with a few prospects, with a few industries where generally I'm not going to ask this at the end. I'm not going to really say, okay, great. By the looks of things, I want to dive straight into my offer. With some of these clients, you're going to have to jump into a 2 call close. So you really need to determine that obviously through the industry, like I just said. Now, in terms of a 2 call close frame, this is generally what I tend to do. This is just a discovery call. Again, just seeing if they're a good fit. At the end of the day, if you can actually generally help them or not, because you are going to come across businesses where it may not be a good fit. And I know what it's like at the beginning, especially when I started my agency. This was back in 2018. Back then, I would literally take anyone. I'm in a position with my agency now where my team will book in calls for me, and there will be calls I'm on where, they may be willing to pay a £2,000 retainer, a $3,000 retainer, but I generally know it's not going to be a good fit, because I know, okay, I've looked into their ad account. I know full well whatever the agency has previously done is something that we would do similar, and I just know perhaps maybe it's a product fit, perhaps it's the brand, maybe there's just sort of a miscommunication there, or just it's just generally not going to work. And this can happen. And obviously I know a lot of you watching this now, maybe you're just getting started. I would assume most of you watching this are just getting started, and you do need help obviously with closing clients. In your scenario, it's slightly different. Of course, if there's a £2,000 retainer there in the open for you, you're going to take it. You just rather get that cash flow and you gain that experience. I get it. I've been there. But that being said, you do generally need to see if they're a good fit, because there's going to be prospects you jump on call with. They may not have the money. They may have such a tight budget that it's just not going to work. Like generally, if they can't even invest a few £100 into ads, it's just generally not going to work. You're not going to be able to deliver results. So it's out of the question charging them 1K, 2K retain. It's just completely out of the question. So obviously that's why a two call close I think is really important. And again, it's not too pushy. Nowadays no one wants to be pushed. Back in 2018 when I was jumping on sales calls and I was speaking to business owners, a lot of them didn't understand Facebook advertising. A lot of them didn't understand Google ads. We're in 2024 now. Majority of the business owners out there, they understand Facebook ads, they understand Google ads, they understand majority of the services out there. So that's something for you to bear in mind, because I hate to be salesy. I'm just not a salesy person. Most of the people who know me, I'm pretty flexible. I just show my numbers, I just show what we do, and people buy into that. I never really go into this with a sales approach. The one call close obviously is great depending on sort of how the leads come to you. If my team's booked in the lead and I can see, okay, great, this is a prospect who's already maybe watched some pre-qualified videos from us, yes, maybe then I will be able to go for the one call close. But if it's just a complete cold lead that's coming in, usually I go down the route of a two call close. And if the business is really big, again, some of you may not know about my agency Social Optimum, but we don't just work with local businesses, we don't just work with e-com. I've got some pretty big corporate clients as well. So I do work with a variety of different industries, and again, depending on industry, that determines obviously sort of how we go about the call structure. Now again, dive deep into their problems, understand their bottlenecks and past experiences and problems. This pretty much applies for a one call close as well and a two call close. You should always be diving into people's problems, diving into their pain points. And again, set the expectation from the beginning that you're the one asking the questions today, and make it clear that this is not a sales call. This is usually what I do for the two call closes. I make it clear to them from the beginning, this in no form will be a sales call. I'm not trying to pitch you anything on today's call. John, Joe, whoever you're talking to, Joe, look, I'm generally just on this call today because I want to generally see if we'd be a good fit, if you guys would generally be a good fit for working with us. You see how I position that? Would you guys be a good fit for us? Instead of them basically jumping on the call and seeing if we're an agency that they want to work with, instead I'm framing it differently. I'm saying, look, I'm also on the call today because I want to see if generally you would be a good fit for us as well. So instead of coming across desperate, I'm framing it in a different way, and that is really what sets the expectations, and that's really what a lot of business owners would prefer to see nowadays. I just find way too often my sales calls, no one wants to be pitched, no one wants to be on a call with a lousy salesman. So this is the kind of approach that I go for. Now, in terms of diving into discovery, obviously you need to pinpoint and make it obvious to them the problems they have, make it a big one. And honestly, this is so important. You need to widen the gap between basically them solving it alone compared to them actually needing help. You want to make it seem so impossible and so hard for them to solve this problem all alone, and you want to make the gap seem so big, and generally so big that they know they need your help. They know that they need your support. And I think that's really important to understand, because too many people, they don't dive enough into the pain points, and then obviously wonder why they can't get the close. You really need to dig down into their pain points and sort of widen that gap. So I hope that's all clear. Now again, you obviously want to make it feel like there's generally no chance they can do this alone. Aim to eliminate all objections before we even mention the price. Only mention the price once they have no objections left, and they're pretty much said yes to your offer. They pretty much have no objections. Then you can go into pricing. But I talk about this later on. It's so important not to ever mention the price anywhere near beginning, anywhere near the middle of the sales call. This should be right at the end, once they pretty much have no questions left and they feel like this is a good fit for them. Now, always throughout the call, in segments, ask if everything's clear, everything's basically okay, because when I'm talking about certain points, at the end of those points that I've just discussed, usually I just ask, okay, Joe, with everything that's been just said just now, is that all clear to you? Do you have any, are there any specific questions that you may have? Just so obviously you can dive into points, because usually I segment my calls into sort of different stages. So at the beginning, maybe I'm talking about sort of how we qualify the leads, or maybe I'm talking about how we actually bring in the leads. Usually then you don't want to be asking them after every sentence, oh, prospect, Mr. Prospect, does that make sense? Joe, does that make sense? You obviously want to segment it. Don't ask too much, but you want to make it clear, because at the end of the call, you don't want to say, do you have any questions? and they've completely forgot about the first point that you mentioned. So obviously make it very clear as you talk about certain points of obviously what you're providing, just basically check with them along the way that they're actually clear on everything that's been discussed. Now, asking what they've done in the past, obviously highlight and pay attention to their points, what didn't work. Again, most businesses you talk to nowadays, they've probably done some marketing services in-house, or they've probably worked with another agency. So it's really important to highlight and kind of dig deep into, maybe what the previous agency did, where they went wrong, etc. Again, that's super, super important. Another point, mirroring what they say. I think this is critical. Like most businesses I talk to, like when I'm speaking to an individual, this applies to anything in sales. I think mirroring not just their tonality, but mirroring the words that they say, I think is probably one of the biggest sales tips I've taken just from my experience on calls. Again, it's just sort of picking up on their tonality, picking up on certain words that they say and kind of mirroring that. So even if they're talking about specific pain points, I'm mirroring the same words that they're saying, the same struggles that they're literally saying to me. It's just all about listening at the end of the day. Instead of thinking about what I'm going to say next, I'm actually taking all the information in. Too many people, they have the presentation in front of them, they have a script on the side, they have their notes, and they're generally just spending all their time thinking about what's the next thing they're going to say, and they're not actually taking in the information that the prospect's literally putting out for them on the plate. And that's why it's important at the start. That's why, instead of just asking, how are you, John? How are you, Joe? I ask, oh, Joe, how's your day been so far today? What have you got plans later? I'm literally putting on a plate for them to give me a more detailed answer, and that kind of sets the frame, that sets the tempo for the rest of the call. Because when I ask specific questions about the business, they're now not going to be limited in their response. I don't want them to give me one or two answer replies. I want them to be as detailed as possible, because obviously that's going to help me, and that means the more information they give me, the more words, the more pain points, I can then obviously mirror that, and that's obviously going to help us get the sell. Again, understanding the situation before diving into questions. Before moving on, make sure you're very clear on their pain points. Finding out why now is the exact time they want to solve their problems. Because, a lot of the time I'll usually just ask near the start, I say, look, Joe, is there a reason why you jumped on a call with me today? How come you didn't jump on a call with me next month? What's the reasoning behind you wanting to dig in and solve this problem today? How come you jumped on a call with me? Really diving into that pain point and understanding, Joe, why are you on the call with me today? It's all about tonality as well. Tonality is something that you will pick up over time. It's something not everyone can pick up straight away. Again, it's just not sounding like a robot. Right now I'm reading off a document I put together, but I'm not reading it word to word. I'm not sounding like a robot. It's the same with sales. You don't want to come across like a robot. It's just having tonality to me. So you don't need to hear that from me. It's common sense at the end of the day, but too many people I speak to, and I as some of you may know, I do a lot of one-to-one agency partnerships. So I work with a lot of agencies just beginning, and I pretty much jump on their sales calls. I pretty much kind of partner up into their agency to help them actually get their first few clients. And I see it way too common where they will jump in on the sales call with me and they start trying to speak and they just sound like a robot. I'm more natural, just the way I speak. Again, this is something that I am going to talk about in some other videos, but on today's video, let's stick to obviously the structure of the calls. Now, dig deep into their why. Not just the exact amount of money they want to make with the business. So, Joe, I get it that you want to increase your sales by 40%. I get it that you want to hit 50K a month. Is there a reason as to why you want to make that amount? Just really dig deep into their reasoning and their why. It's the same with you starting your agency. I'm sure there's a why as to why you started your agency. I'm sure there's some meaning. It's not just all about the money. I'm sure there's a meaning behind why you want the money. There's a meaning behind why you want to start a business. It's the same with the business owner. He's just another human that's facing the same problem. There's clearly a big why as to why he wants to obviously earn this money. There's a big reasoning as to why he wants to build his brand. So dig into that, because again, that's something you can mention later in the call. When you're pitching your offer, you're picking up on all these keywords, you're picking up on all these points that he's put across to you. So I think that's really important. Now, obviously find out if there's another decision maker in the business. The amount of times I've been on a call, especially early stages at the beginning, where I'd spend half an hour on the call going through everything, and then by the time I pitch my offer, the business owner goes, okay, let me go talk to my wife, or let me go talk to my business partner. Really important that you actually dig into obviously working out whether they've actually got another partner, because then again, if they do, I usually say, okay, great, Joe, I get it, that's totally fine. When would a great time be for us to all reconvene on a call? Try get our second call booked in, because you don't want to waste your time. You don't want to be pitching for another 30 minutes to this prospect that clearly is not the, is not the sole decision maker. He's got to go talk to someone. He or she has to go talk to someone. Really dive deep into obviously, who this other decision maker is, and just be upfront with them. Look, Joe, I get it. You're running this business with your wife. Is she also a huge decision maker in this, or can you obviously proceed or go ahead with, basically your plan of action without her? You're just basically digging deep and working out whether this is something that this prospect can make a decision by himself, or do they need to ask their wife? Do they need to ask their business partner? So, example questions. Joe, what's been happening with business name at the moment that's made you want to jump on a call with me? Like I discussed earlier on. How long has this been an issue for your business? Are there any big consequences if this issue doesn't get solved? So, Joe, have you dived into any solutions in the past to try to solve this problem? What did that previous agency do for you when you were working with them? Obviously you dive into these questions based on their responses in the past. If they told you that they had an in-house marketer, or they tell you they worked with agency, dive into that. Okay, Joe, I get it. So you hired a in-house marketer. What were they doing? Do you mind just explaining? Would you mind diving into that for me, Joe? Diving into those details, and obviously having that tonality is what's going to help. So, have you dived into any solutions in the past to try to solve this problem? What did agent, go through that, pinpoint that, really important. Now, what will X amount of leads, or what will 10,000 sales do for your business over the next few months? So Joe, tell me, if we generated you 50 more leads every single month and 20 of those leads turned into customers, what would that do for your business? Not just in terms of revenue, what will that do for you? What will that do for you, and what will that do for your business? Really dive into that. Dive into that emotional side of the business. Now, how much, this is very important. Obviously, you need to dive into numbers. You really need to dive into the business, just in terms of revenue sense. How much income is X generating at the moment on a monthly basis? How much are you guys turning over in revenue on average over the past 6 months on a monthly basis? How many leads are being brought in on a weekly basis? What's your appointment to close deal ratio? How have you been at these numbers? How long have you been at these numbers? Again, how much are you currently spending on ads? What's your ROAS at? What's your margins like? And your LTV of a customer, your lifetime value of a customer. Just to give you an example, we could be working with a clinic here. We could be working with a dentist. We bring them a lead. Lead comes in, pretty much. We work out that one lead is worth $7,000 over the year. That's working out the lifetime value of the customer. We've literally brought in a lead for, let's say, the lead cost us £7, and now that lead's worth $7,000. So just looking at the margins, looking at the lifetime value of a customer is really important. Dig deep into those numbers with the prospect. Again, what's the maximum CPL? So what's the maximum cost per lead? So say to the business owner, look, Joe, while we are on a call, it would be amazing if I could dive into your numbers. What is the maximum that you would pay for a potential customer? Really dive into this, because a lot of business owners don't actually know their maximum cost per lead. A lot of customers just want the lowest possible, but they don't actually realize, generally they could be paying £200 per lead, and they'd still see significant returns. It may not be instant significant returns, but because of the value of that lead, because of the value of that lifetime value of a customer, they're going to see the returns. So really important you dive into those numbers. Again, as I discussed before, asking how many people are in the business right now. Are you the only founder? Are you the only decision maker? If they, like I said before, if they say they've got a wife that's also a decision maker, if they say they've got a business partner, mentioning, does X know you're on this call with me today? Can you make a decision with them, or do we need to schedule a second call? Obviously, like I said before, if they do want to schedule, if they do say that the other decision maker, they're going to need to talk to them, that's when you need to just get another call scheduled in. But there's no point wasting any more time on that call. There's no point trying to pitch them the offer and then obviously them relaying it to their business partner. Get them on that second call. Super important. Again, make sure not to come across desperate. If they mention another person, okay, prospect name, I'd love to set up another call with your partner so I can run you both through the process. Simple as that. Make it clear that you're not trying to rush them into a decision today. Super clear. I never like to be salesy, never like to be pushy. Now, step 4, closing up the call. Obviously, basically this ultimately comes down to whether you're doing a one call or 2 call close. So as you can see, my 1 call close frame usually is, so X, based on everything you told me today, I generally believe we can help you take business X to where you want it to be. Now, John or Joe, now, where do you want us to go from here? Usually then it should be a simple reply of, I want to hear your offer, or I want to proceed, and then basically just proceed to the pitch. As simple as that. Shouldn't be too complicated. With the two-call close frame, so Joe, based on everything you told me today, I generally believe we can help take your business to where you want it to be. Now, Joe, the next steps from here would be to book in a call for either tomorrow, or we can go through the call later today. What time works for you? Usually I try to get them booked in for a call literally the following day or the day after. To be honest, I've rarely ever will arrange to book in a call a week later. So usually it would be within a day, within 48 hours, or even if I'm doing the call in the morning, I will try pitch for an evening call perhaps, and then pretty much like I've just said here, just so I can run them through the process, and I usually I always get them booked in on the call. Don't say I'm going to send over a calendar after. Don't say okay, we'll arrange a time over email. Literally while you're on the call with them, you should be getting them booked in. So I want you to manually book them in, check what time works for them. So Joe, I've got a slot tomorrow at 2 p.m. Does that work for you? Or Joe, does it same time today? Does that work for you tomorrow? Great. Let's get you booked in now. Let's secure that. As for any reason, would you not be able to make the call? Just make it clear. Dive into those points, and just basically confirm right there and then that they're good for a call either later or the next day. Now, step 5, obviously your pitch. This is obviously all about your service, offer. You want to make it feel unique. There's so many agencies out there nowadays. You need to sound unique. I don't want you pitching with, we provide Facebook ads, we provide Google ads. That's just not a good pitch. That's just not a good offer. It doesn't sound unique at all. Most of these businesses are going to be hit up like this in emails or like this in their DMs by just copy-paste agencies, which I usually mention in other videos. Copy-paste agency is someone who's probably just gone through a course and they're just copy and pasting all the scripts they've been provided, and really no time and efforts going into their agency. So don't come across like a copy-paste agency. Generally, come up with a unique offer, come up with a unique service that stands out. It may not even be unique. When I pitch my services and we're providing meta advertising, Google ads, I don't just say we provide meta ads. I come up with a system. I have a unique name for my process, a unique name for my system that makes me stand out. And it basically, to the business owner, it seems like we're providing a complete different service. Of course, there's probably more to my service than most agencies, but I've got a unique name for it. If I just said I provided meta ads and did some stuff with the back-end system, they're not really going to be as sold on it. But when I say, okay, great, we've got X system and it's going to generate you this, yes, it comes across in a different way. Again, I will give you an idea. I've worked in many clinics in the UK, and this usually is a kind of a generic pitch for most agencies. So we can generate leads on a monthly basis and drive booked meetings into your calendar through Facebook ads. So let's just say that. Now, this would be my improved pitch. We drive pre-qualified leads for our tailored advertising campaign to your business and have our in-house team call up each lead to ensure we are driving in the perfect ICP for your business. So again, this literally sounds completely different. We have built a strategy exclusively for clinics to ensure we are driving pre-qualified leads and bookings into your calendar. Our in-house and automated systems make sure you're constantly receiving pre-qualified customers on a weekly basis. This is where I literally just wrote this pretty quickly, but you could go into big detail. You could say, look, we have our in-house team. They will pre-qualify the leads. They will literally call them up 5 times to make sure that this lead actually books in and to make sure they can actually afford the services. And again, for example, with clinics, with a lot of these local business-based services, usually what we did for them and what I still do for them is we have them pay a deposit. So instead of just generating a load of leads and having them book in and maybe not turn up to their appointment, we make sure that they've got to pay basically a deposit before, just to ensure, obviously, they are a qualified lead. Again, ICP, ideal client persona. Basically just diving into sort of the exact target customer, the exact target prospect for the business. Now again, naming your offer, making it sound completely different from the rest, like I just talked about before, custom naming conventions. Forget saying we run Facebook ads. You could say we have a new CYJ system that generates pre-qualified leads. It's really just coming up with new variations. Now, last of all, step 6, closing the call. A confused buyer never buys. I can't stress it enough. If you're at the end of that call and they've still got a million questions and you basically haven't checked throughout the call, you haven't checked up with them and just made sure that everything is clear as you're taking them through the steps, they're never going to buy. So always make sure the prospect that you're on a call with, make sure they understand everything you've just taken them through. They shouldn't have any questions. By the time you pitch them the price, they should have 0 questions. Again, I usually just say before obviously the end of the call, great, based on everything I've run you through, do you generally feel like this is what you need to obviously take your business to the next level? Yeah, again, this could be another question you could ask. Now Joe, pricing aside, do you have any questions on everything we've discussed so far? Just double check before you dive into pricing. Just make sure, do they have any final questions? Because at the end of the day, like I said, confused buyer will never buy. Now, last of all, obviously, main objective is just to make sure the prospect is fully bought into your offer and they generally believe you are what's missing to take the business to the next level. Nothing more important. I can't stress enough how basically taking them through these steps, taking them through every single thing I've talked about in this document here. I will attach this document below this video. This is what's going to get you sales. This is what's going to get you deals through the roof. I just see it all the time now with these agency owners. Unfortunately, I've just seen kind of not the fall of the SMA space, the fall of the agency space, but again, I've been running agency for 8 years now. I've been on all these courses, been in all these mentorships, and I just see way too often people are going about their sales calls in the complete wrong way. And it's a shame to see, but again, there's no reason why you can't come across in the right way. There's no reason why you can't frame your call in the right way, but following this sort of structure, following these sort of 6 steps, this will generally help you. It doesn't matter kind of what industry you're in. This is sort of a sales structure that should help. Doesn't matter what your service is, doesn't matter what your niche is, what your industry is, this will help. Now, again, as some of you may know, I obviously do have my school community. So if you are running an agency, you are an existing agency owner, maybe you're at 10K a month, maybe you're at 5K a month, whatever it may be. I've got a school community where I'm pretty much providing systems, providing lots of value in there on a weekly basis, on a daily basis. So if you are someone who wants to get started, maybe you're watching this video now, you still haven't started your agency or you're struggling to get your first client on board, I do have the community. I will link it below. Again, I am charging a very small, low ticket fee for this. Again, with all the value I provide, with the calls that I provide, this is something that I am currently building up. So yeah, we'd love to see you in there. Nonetheless, if you don't know about my one-to-one partnership scheme, this is something that's for someone who's just beginning. I basically have a guarantee where I take on around 5 to 10 agencies every single month. I work with them exclusively on a one-to-one basis. I basically jump into their agency as a sort of a temporary partner. Essentially, instead of it just being a mentorship or another course, I'm pretty much jumping into your agency and kind of working with you until we actually sign 3 clients together. As you can imagine, ultimately, a lot of it comes down to me leveraging my results with my agency. So, on top of me actually teaching my systems, running you through everything when it comes to outreach, I am running you through obviously service delivery. I will literally be jumping on the sales calls with you when we do get bookings, bookings made. I will be jumping on those sales calls with you. I'll be pretty much managing all the calls and leveraging all of my obviously results when it comes to my agency. I will be leveraging that to obviously get your first few deals in line. So if you are watching this now, you are a new agency owner and you're really struggling just to get started, you're struggling to get your first few clients in, honestly, feel free to send me a DM on Instagram. My Instagram is MattyDigitalUK, or simply join the school community if this is something that's not for you, because again, my one-to-one agency partnership, I kind of pick and choose who I do take on. But again, it is based on commission, so I do also have a upfront fee for that. So it's not something that's for something that's for someone essentially that wouldn't be able to afford a kind of a mentorship. I'm not out there like these gurus charging 5-10K, but that being said, I do charge a bit up front. But obviously with that comes the commission and the guarantee of basically working until we sign 3 clients. So honestly, to everyone that's just watched this video, I hope you found value of it. I hope you were able to take some value from it. And as always, always feel free to reach out to me on Instagram if you've got any ideas as to videos you want me to make. I'm someone that's been in the agency space for 8 years. Recently just got into the YouTube game, trying to make as much content, trying to provide as much value as possible, because at the end of the day, the problem with the agency space is a lot of people that make content on YouTube nowadays, a lot of people that talk about running an agency, but they're not really actively running an agency. I'm someone that's been in the game for a while. If you see my content on Instagram, it's pretty clear I've still got my agency social optimum. So again, we'd love to see some of you in the school community. We'd also love to see some of you applying for my one-to-one agency partnership, which I also will drop a link below. Again, I just want to make it clear because I generally hate it, obviously, when people booking calls and they're just not the right fit for this. The one-to-one agency partnership is exclusively for people who are ready to invest and they're just ready to get their first 3 clients on board. They're really struggling. The school community, also for beginners, but obviously it's a lower retainer. I only charge $150 a month at the moment. That's $150 a month to join the school community. So yeah, as always, if that's maybe not for you and you're just an agency owner getting started, maybe you've got no cash flow at the moment, listen, watch as much of my content as possible. Definitely follow me on Instagram. I provide lots of value on there. And yeah, I look forward to seeing you in the next video. This has become, it's something that I'm enjoying a lot more of. Like I've been vlogging recently. I've been making content, talking to the camera like this, showing documents like this. So I'm generally excited, and I definitely will be making more videos like this. So please subscribe, comment anything below that you want to see in the next video, and I look forward to seeing you then. Thank you.